You're listening to Faith, Relationship, and Community Podcast, where we talk about all things faith, relationship, and community. My name is Noah. I'm the lead pastor of Morningside Lutheran Church. In today's episode, I sit down with Jana Swenson Consulting as we talk about the importance of stewardship and generosity as it pertains to being a disciple of Jesus. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about you.
Okay.
Talk about your just the career, and I don't even know if I know what did you? How long have you been in the finance industry? And
how did I
you've got
get
your own
here?
Consulting, but what'd you do before all that?
Yeah, so I am. Jonathan and I went to seminary together, and then our first call was in Clear Lake, Iowa, together.
Oh yeah, okay.
At Zion Lutheran,
Yep.
And we specialized, both of us, myself in small group ministry, and Jonathan in the worship arts and confirmation ministries. But then, as we served a couple other churches, we were responsible for making sure that the church had enough funds to do its ministry. And so then we started really focusing in on what is good stewardship, and how do we communicate that in the church? How do we encourage people to give financially in a way that isn't shaming or guilting them? Yeah. And then in the last church we served in Cedar Rapids, we ran a capital campaign, or we hired a consultant to come in and run a capital campaign for a new addition. And through that experience, I learned a lot about giving. And the woman who ran the organization was the owner, and the consultant that did the campaign was the owner. And she kind of tapped me on the shoulder at the end of it all and said, if you ever feel called out of pastoral ministry, you give me a call, because I think you'd be really good at this.
Yeah, okay.
And I didn't think anything of it, because I was feeling fully called to pastoral ministry.
Yeah.
But eventually I felt like maybe my time as a parish pastor was coming to an end. And so I did some deep reflection and exploration.
Those words kept ringing in your ear.
They did. And I finally reached out to her. And long story short, I went to work for her as a capital campaign consultant for churches.
Yeah.
And in the middle of all of that, also did some just straight development work for Mount Carmel Family Camp in Alexandria, Minnesota.
Yep.
So that's kind of where I got more of my formal education.
Okay.
I studied for the CFRE, which is Certified Fundraising Executive, and had a mentor, and eventually felt really called to run my own consulting firm that really specialized either in capital campaigns or helping churches with their overall general fund giving, and inspiring people to give from a sense of discipleship and faith, as opposed to talking about the light bill.
Right.
And the scarcity mindset, to come at it from God's understanding of abundance, and the way that His love is so abundant in our lives translates into and should translate into how we live our lives as disciples of Christ, is in that sense of abundance and giving, as opposed to that scarcity mindset. We never have enough.
Right. I love that. And I think that's, and we've talked about the connotation of maybe giving, or that time of the offering in the church services, especially for those, and I understand, those who are new to the church or coming in, sometimes it's the connotation is the church is always asking for money, and that's a big job to be called into, a role to be called into, because there's a lot of people that might be in a different ministry setting or a nonprofit that have to do the fundraising part and they don't like it. And because it's a lot to ask for money, especially in certain times, seasons of the economy.
I hear people say to me all the time, "Oh, I could never do what you do."
Yeah.
Or I could never ask someone for money. And I say, that's really not what it's about. It's about encouraging and inviting people to invest in something they believe in.
Right.
That's going to have a lasting impact.
Yeah.
And when we think about our churches that way, that it's a literally a place that we can leave a legacy by investing some of our time, talent, and treasure in a place that we have been so touched by that we want future generations to also be touched by.
Right.
And when we focus more on the impact the ministry is having on people's lives and less on the budget, then we inspire people to give instead of kind of guilt them into giving.
Because we don't want it to be, this isn't I should back up, nor is that what the Lord puts on our heart as a guilt of giving, but it's more of us seeing the fruit of what we're able to do through the ministry that He's put before us. Yeah.
And just from a kind of a theological perspective, God is the penultimate of generosity in the sense that He gave His only Son, but we were created in His image.
Yes.
Which means we were created to be generous.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when we're not, we aren't living a life of fulfillment.
Right. And that's the piece that's missed, I think, so often is you've got the scarcity, as you've talked about, and fulfillment here on the other side. And it's scary to get over here, but it becomes, I love that in where the Lord is saying, test me. And the only time through Scripture that He says test me is with our generosity and see that I won't open up the floodgates and of the blessing. And we don't get there unless we have that generous heart.
Right. And at the same time, it's totally understandable that it's hard for us to do that because our culture constantly, subliminally teaches us otherwise.
Yes.
We are taught to hoard. We are, and not even, we're taught to acquire, to keep, we see meaning in having things or having experiences as opposed to kind of giving ourselves away.
And we noticed this, by the way, how many storage units facilities were there like 40 years ago? Not as many. Today they're around every corner because we're just accustomed now to accumulate.
That is a really good point, and I hadn't thought about that. We are in the process of moving, and so I've been sorting through all of our stuff, and I just wrote a LinkedIn post called The Infamous Green Bag because we have one at the bottom of our driveway, and it's filled with junk, and Waste Management's going to come pick it up soon. But as I was filling it, I was thinking, did I really need this? What was this worth what I paid for it in terms of use? What could I have who could I have blessed, or what could I have given the money that I spent on this to? When you look back on your possessions, you have a very different experience with them than when you're in the middle of buying them. And so to stop in the moment, that's what I've been taught myself, really, is to stop in the moment of thinking I need to buy this thing and reflect on my priorities and my desire to be generous. Because I think if you asked every person in this congregation, they would say, of course I want to be generous to my church. I love my church. I just don't have much money or as much as I would like to give to the church. And oftentimes that really just comes down to priorities and being willing to give something up for the sake of being generous.
And at any amount too, because I think that we almost cheat ourselves out of that fulfillment of truly experiencing generosity, maybe by saying, well, I don't have enough to give to be of impact. And
yes.
I'm not just talking about on an offering plate on a Sunday morning, just the generosity of life, how we can be helpful to one another in different ways. I think if you don't taste that a little bit to experience generosity, because I just don't have enough that will be meaningful.
Yeah.
We cheat ourselves out of that.
Yeah. One of the things I love doing most, and I love seeing most, once a capital campaign is complete, is that the leadership team who has been immersed in the spiritual foundation of giving and generosity, and they've worked so hard on kind of the why behind the campaign.
Yeah.
The way that the funds from this campaign are going to benefit people and the congregation, regardless of what they're raising money for. I've raised lots of money for boilers, but we always talk about hospitality. With that, because the underlying value, the thing that's most important, is that you have a comfortable space to worship in, or to do Bible study in, or whatever it might be. So,
we've talked about that many times here, and we'll get to our experience with you here in the last year. But this idea that we've got a building that we want to be a blessing, we don't want it to just be closed doors, that it's just a club of people that come together. But in our congregation knows this, we open up to so many different ministries, agencies, groups that are outside of this building. And I tell people, this is our building to steward, but it is a blessing to have. But we got to take care. We have to have boilers. We have to have lights. We have to have plumbing that works well. And you're welcome for being able to do that. But to have that, that plays into the blessing of having a building.
Yep, absolutely. And understanding that there's a very strong theology of hospitality, right? Like that's a core value for all of us as believers.
Yeah.
And taking care of our building is a way to live out that value of hospitality.
Right.
And so then it becomes a lot more meaningful for leaders. They're instead of raising money for a boiler, now they're raising money so that they can be hospitable, both to themselves as a congregation, but to all these outside groups. And there's kind of a transformation that takes place, and a deepening of faith around generosity and stewardship and giving, and all of a sudden asking for money isn't quite so daunting or dirty even. It gets such a bad connotation until we start thinking about, really, it's an invitation to invest.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what I have really appreciated about your approach and really theology of what you have brought to the table, is this sense of discipleship. So you've been working with us for the last year, and it's been awesome. With when I say us here as a church, Morningside Lutheran, and a team specific to our stewardship team to walk in through. So talk about what all you've done with us and your experience of all that.
Oh, it's been so fun and so meaningful for me to kind of watch everyone, watch the light bulbs go on at different times for different people in the group. But we really have focused on three. The goal is to have a kind of overarching stewardship plan that meets people where they're at. And encourages them to take just the next step forward in their giving journey without guilting or shaming people, simply inspiring people. And so we focus on kind of three things. One is just making sure we have language and theology to talk about giving so that we aren't talking just about finances.
Right.
The second is to make sure that we're telling the stories of impact. Nonprofits are much better at that than churches are, because I think we live so closely in community with each other in the church that we assume that everybody knows the impact that we're having.
Yeah, I would agree.
But if you ask a retired person what's happening in Sunday school on Sunday mornings with the children, they won't know unless we tell them the stories.
Right.
And I've talked to enough Sunday school teachers, and when I ask them the question, tell me about a moment when a student had a moment of understanding faith or interacting with a Bible story that meant something to them, and they always can tell the story of at least one student that was like the light bulb went on for them in terms of the meaning of a story. And those are the stories that we want to tell the rest of the congregation, because it is a reminder that Sunday school is like affecting, or confirmation even, those highs and lows that you share in confirmation small groups every week. Those are lifelines for students, and it's a way that faith intersects with their daily life. And when we can help the rest of the congregation see that all these little stories and these little impacts are taking place, then they're naturally motivated to continue to invest or to increase their investment. But sometimes we just forget to tell those stories.
Right. Yeah.
So that's the second thing. And then the third thing is really just having kind of a focused way of identifying kind of different groups in the church in terms of giving patterns, because some people are going to give, the best way for them to give is going to be from a qualified charitable distribution from their IRA, because they're living on a fixed income. They're carefully budgeting to make ends meet on that fixed income, but they've got an IRA that's accumulating in value. That's a beautiful way, and probably one of the wisest ways for them to make their gift to the church.
Right.
But that may not happen on a weekly basis. That's likely to happen on a quarterly or even a yearly basis, where they make one big gift once a year. Yeah. There's going to be other people who are going to want to sign up for automated giving. And kind of, then they know whether we're in church on Sunday or not, our gift is still coming in, and we're making a difference in that way.
Because if you have an ADHD brain like me, it's online giving is the way to do it.
It is.
To set that up and to know that,
It's, or you're just busy and or you don't have a checkbook anymore. I can't tell you how many people said, I don't write checks anymore.
I know.
So we want to meet people where they're at and encourage them to take that next best step. And so in order to do that, we kind of have to find these groupings of people, people over 70 who are using their IRA, people who have a donor advised fund, people who give online regularly, those who come maybe when they can and give when they can. Those who have been worshiping but have no understanding of giving, they haven't been raised in the church, so they don't understand that's even part of our role as a member of a church.
And the heart experience that comes out of that, as we were talking about.
Yes. Yeah. So just inviting people at the right time in the right way to make the right gift for them. Yeah. That takes some thoughtfulness. And so those are kind of the three areas that we really focused on together with the stewardship team.
Right. And to be able to develop a plan now that we can walk into, and again, not just to have things on a piece of paper of like, this is when we ask, this is who we ask, but it's how are we holistically able to talk about the component of generosity in our walk in our faith. I think that's one of the greatest things that I have learned personally is just how much this shapes our discipleship. To be able to, and I think as a pastor, you've always kind of known that. You use the word assumed. I think that's a large aspect of my life anyway. I'll speak for myself. Yeah. You can assume what people know and you assume what people experience. Yeah. Assume that people understand that it's meaningful to give and that it does keep the doors open and all of these things. But there's there's so much more depth to that I think even for myself, we don't spend a lot of time digging into to be able to say, no, this is more than just providing for a building or even a ministry. It's the ministry of our lives, of our hearts, because we are so gripped towards stuff and money and finances. And the Lord knows, I think it was said the money's talked about more than anything in the Bible, and which is fascinating because it just shows how much the Lord wants to speak to us about not just keep giving everything you can, but protect our hearts and our lives from our attachment to money.
And one of the things that I really encourage leaders to do is to have some safe places to talk about money and faith, like the intersection between the two. And the best time to do that is not when we're asking the congregation for money. Because then there's a understandably assumed, well, you just want our money. We're talking about this because you just want our money. And that's understandable. But when we can, in a safe place where there's no judgment, really wrestle with, what is the intersection between faith and money at a time when the church isn't asking people for money, then we really have a chance to become disciples and integrate our giving and the way we spend our money into our lives of faith. And everybody wants to do that. We all know that that's part of the life of discipleship, but it is probably one of the most challenging places. And Martin Luther talked about that. The last thing to be converted is our purses.
Absolutely.
Our money. So
we hold pretty tight to it, don't we?
We do, and that's very understandable. So there should be no feelings of judgment around that. That is our culture, and we're swimming upstream as believers.
Right. The second part that comes to mind that I think an area that I've grown in is to be able to see, like we've talked about, time, talent, and treasure. It's so easy to look at somebody and to thank them for serving if they serve a lot in a certain ministry area. If they're in the praise team, a Sunday school teacher, a Wednesday night, they're maybe here all the time. But money, with this connotation of just like we're guarded on it and we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to, we have very generous givers here. And a lot of times maybe it's unrecognized, unnoticed, or just not knowing how to thank, how to approach, but it can be really under the wings or the guise of like, thanks for what you're doing, but it's very personal. We don't want to talk about it.
Right. Well, there are people who have the gift of giving.
Yes.
And part of that is they've been blessed with finances in a way that the rest of us maybe haven't been. And they are very generous, and we don't want to treat them any different as pastors than anyone else in the congregation. Right. But what happens when we don't thank people specifically and individually, whether they're giving $5 or $50,000, we communicate that we assume people are going to give, and they don't necessarily feel seen and heard and acknowledged for the gift. And one of the most important things to do, whether you're a church or a nonprofit leader, is to thank people for their investment in the ministry.
Right.
So we have to step out of that uncomfortable space and pick up the phone and say, thank you for your gift, and thank you for using, just like you do with a Sunday school teacher. Thank you for all that time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for your gift. Yep. That is the way they're contributing, and there's no, neither one of them is more important than another. They're all important. Yeah. But we need to say thank you to all of them, whether it's service or financial gifts.
I had a gentleman, just came to mind, that came to me one time. He said, I don't know how to work with kids. I don't know how to sing. I don't have time all the time to be on the weekends to help open doors. but I've been blessed with just a job and savings that I know how to give, and that's what I feel like I'm really good at. And so, how can I use that gift? And I thought, how cool is that to just have that heart, or for him to even recognize that that is a gift, and it's truly something that is. And I don't say valuable in the way just because it's money, but it's valuable in the sense that he's recognizing that the Lord has blessed him, and he wants to use that gift that he has.
Yes,
to know that is a gift.
He wants to make a contribution to this church, and he can't do it in these ways, but he can do it in this way, and that's really important.
And I think that's an invitation to those who are listening that. It's not just the least I can do is write a check, and that's the easy way out.
No.
That's the gift. That's a blessing. And sometimes, I don't want that to be the connotation that that's all I can do. That's extremely generous to be able to do, especially for those that might not have time to be involved in different things.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so we see that. I'm curious. You work with a lot of churches and across the nation, and you've worked with different ministry settings. Where does the church, and you don't have to pinpoint anybody in particular, where does the church kind of get it wrong? And maybe why there's this negative connotation about giving and money and all of this?
Our culture just has changed, even in the last 50 years, it's changed. And so what worked in the past in terms of how people give to the church, which was they came to church almost every Sunday and they filled out their offering envelope and they wrote a check and they dropped it in the offering plate. Well, people don't come to church every week anymore. Right. And the way they pay for things is electronically. Yeah. So to expect them to, use a method that isn't really common anymore is missing the boat. So I think what's happened is just the church hasn't adapted as quickly with ways to give as our culture has. Yeah. In terms of just ways to pay for things. So I think the other thing is that it is especially hard for leaders to talk about giving without feeling like they're asking people to support their salaries. I mean, we are, as pastors, put in an awkward position there. But if we truly believe that giving to the church is an investment in a ministry that's impacting people's lives, then we as leaders also have to be bold. Yeah. And one of the things I appreciate so much about you is that you really are articulating and have the language and the theology around stewardship and generosity from a biblical perspective. Yeah. And I always say to people, I'm just saying what God's saying, right?
Yeah,
and if you want to argue, you argue with God, not me.
Right. Yeah, not me. That's not mine. Sorry.
Yeah,
that's right.
And that's our responsibility is to reflect what Scripture says about generosity. And we shy away from that because it feels like we're asking for money for our salaries. And so that's the other place I would say the church is just shy about. Sure. And then the third place I would say that we aren't quite getting it right is that we aren't talking about how people can use an accumulated asset to make their gifts.
Yes.
And so I used the example earlier of a charitable distribution from an IRA.
Right.
And that
I'm glad we're circling around that because I would say one of the maybe shortcomings is education in general.
Yes, exactly.
So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, in many ways, it's of benefit to the donor as well as the church to give from an accumulated asset. It could be a gift of stock, and then you're not paying capital gains taxes on it because it's getting transferred directly from to the church, and then the church sells it. So that's one way. The IRAs is another way. But a CD, real estate, there's all kinds of ways that might be best for the donor.
Right.
That allows them then to make their best gift to the church. And again, most people want to be generous. They just think, oh, I have to use my checkbook or from my cash flow or my regular earnings, and that's all spoken for.
Sure.
But when you think about, your IRA is going to reaccumulate what you have just donated to the church because it continues to grow.
Right.
So if the stock market's doing well, that can be a really sound way for people to give. But we do need to educate people about those ways because, and we're not financial advisors, right? So we always say, talk to your accountant, talk to a financial advisor.
Yep.
Before you make any of these kinds of decisions, but it's becoming more popular for donors in the nonprofit sector. We want to make sure that churches are staying up.
And thanks to you, we've got information now on our website that will help people guide to the next step. So for anybody who's hearing all these IRA and different language that you're not really sure about, uncomfortable about, because that can be overwhelming too. Yeah. Just if you don't know about the financial industry and some of the language, myself included, I've learned a lot through this process, but still have a lot to learn. Yeah. You can go to our website now and check that out and see what that next step is.
Absolutely. And always talk to a financial professional, because they can guide you as well.
Absolutely, yeah, that's good. Any last notes, thoughts, questions that you have that you want to share?
Well, I am just so impressed with what I see here at Morningside Lutheran Church, and I feel like the Lord is blessing your ministry here, and people are being impacted by the ministry. And your leadership is key to that. The whole staff, I'm so impressed with, and the leaders I got to work with on the stewardship generosity team. I just really want to. You're a very healthy, vibrant church, and I hope all the members of this church are very proud to be connected here.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. It's been awesome to work alongside with you and what I would call a partnership and a friendship that we have now, and it's been a blessing in opening our eyes and our hearts to this new season of generosity and discipleship. So thank you so much.
You bet. Thank you.
So as you heard in this conversation with Jana, giving can be kind of a difficult topic, whether that's something that you're not really sure how that works, or maybe you're comfortable with giving regardless of where you're at. Giving is a part of discipleship from the heart. And so I just wanted to share this text in 2 Corinthians chapter 9, where it says this: each should give what they have decided in their hearts to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. I want that to be an encouragement, because this doesn't mean that you have to give everything away, and it might mean right now you're in a tough spot, but anything that you've decided on your heart to give, it might be a few dollars, it might be a few $100s. Whatever the Lord has put on your heart and you in conversation with Him, He loves that. He just wants to hear from you and to know that He has all of your trust, even when it comes to your finances. And so I want to encourage you, if you're a part of the ministry here at Morningside Lutheran, or if you're not, if you're part of another church or a congregation, to have that heart of generosity, because the Lord can do some pretty cool things through it. Thanks for listening today to our Faith, Relationship, and Community podcast. For more episodes, check out our website, morningsidelutheran.com, or on our social media platforms. We appreciate you joining. God bless.